Coming to this is the third week of the Neil Aggett Inquest, and former security branch member Paul Erasmus has taken the stand there. ENCA reporter Barry Bateman is following the story for us and joins me now for an update. Barry, good afternoon. Now, the brutality of the apartheid regime is well known. This witness, however, has discussed the particular interrogation techniques used by the security branch. What did he have to say?
Yeah, good afternoon. Well, he was talking in detail about those nasty techniques that were employed to try and make a political detainee talk. These were carried out on the 10th floor of the former John Vorster Square police station. He said that at a very start you would have sleep deprivation. So as your political detainee would come in, you would deprive them of sleep. And if that didn't work in breaking the detainee, you'd go up to the next level, which was exercises. You would drill an individual for hour upon hour until they are absolutely exhausted. That, coupled with the sleep deprivation and the constant questioning, would weaken them a little bit more. And again, if that didn't work, you'd ramp it up and you'd then move on to assault. We're just talking about slapping somebody in the face or punching them. But again, it would just go worse and worse if these techniques weren't working. We were talking about, or we heard about rather, waterboarding, which is the simulation of somebody drowning, putting a bag over their head and pouring water over it, which creates the impression that the person is going to be drowned. And then, of course, we had the electric shock. We were told how the security branch had obtained back in the day, then we had the old telephones which had the crank mechanism that was then attached to a detainee and used to shock them. The question from Howard Varney, which is the advocate for Aggett's family, was, well, when would you be using these kind of techniques and what would be required? And this was Erasmus's response.
My Lord, everything from assault with a flat hand, in other words, a slap, which I used on 2 occasions to 2 people, Rockland Mark Williams and Stephen Johannes Marais, where I felt it apt at the time to give them a clout. The more sophisticated types of torture was, I believe the Americans call it waterboarding. My Lord, is putting a prisoner's property receipt bag, which is a thick cloth bag over the person's head and throwing water on it, which immediately brings about partial suffocation and certainly terrible panic. The most notorious or the most famous and certainly the quickest of all of these methods was what was generally referred to in a joking manner and known universally across South Africa in security branch or intelligence terms was Radio Moscow, which was the little generators that were being scrapped or brought into disuse by then Post Office, which is now Telkom. Your old phones had this little slinger, the English word, a little wind-up generator, which you would pick up the handset and then you'd wind this thing and it would send an electric impulse down the wires to the exchange where you had an operator sitting with headphones on. Now that little machine produced quite a substantial shock. I might just mention that they weren't only used in the security branch. My first experience as a student constable at Bedfordview, the detectives had one of these things and they would wind up. The other term that applied to Radio Moscow, they would wind up somebody who'd been arrested for, say, housebreaking, whatever.
But it seems, Barry, it wasn't just investigating and interrogating political activists. What else was the security branch up to?
Well, there were significant surveillance operations that they carried out. Erasmus was referring to how they had bugs installed almost everywhere in South Africa, in business boardrooms, in public places, in schools, in SRC at universities, in their meeting rooms, even in lawyers, particularly in lawyers who represented some of these political detainees. And what they would do is they would piggyback on the back of the post office infrastructure, and if they had heard about any particular meeting that was going to be taking place at a particular particular location, it was as simple as just plugging into that particular already existing bug, and then the security branch would be in a position to listen in. They also had a massive network of informers. Erasmus saying that even a little small town in the middle of nowhere, there was one particular example, a town of about 1,000 people, had 150 informers in it. So the great extent that the apartheid regime and the security branch went to ensure that, just about everybody was listening to everybody else, lest, they could pick up any potential dissent towards the government.
All right, then. Well, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much, Barry Bateman, and coming